The Vikings and the Packers are two teams in desperation mode. So who's going to come out on top? Welcome to Crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside another Crossover Thursday, an NFC North Crossover Thursday. Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers. Hey, that's me. Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings joining me in today's Crossover Thursday presented by our friends at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Luke, the Vikings coming off a brutal loss to the Chicago Bears where it seemed like they had just gone down after a tough day to score the game-winning points. And then a kickoff return turns into a 9-yard drive for the Bears.
Yeah, right. Pretty much right in the field goal range, and game ends on special teams.
There. And JJ McCarthy, social media calling for him to be benched at halftime. Where are we right now with JJ McCarthy? Because that seems like the big thing to be talking about with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, well, if you're on social media, I think you live in a different reality than a lot of us. But that's not a place where intelligent discourse goes down, and I don't think it has been for some time.
It's true.
In the building where actual decisions will be made, it's pretty difficult to, I think, maintain the patience they want to maintain, right? Here's the deal. McCarthy is playing a lot worse than you ever hoped, right? Coming into year two, had a year in rehab, right? This is not a year working on mechanics and footwork, but you're still in the classroom and you're trying to get that. And he is very much drowning. I think the Vikings have made things harder on him than they have to be. And I think he's made things too hard on himself as well. But it is not working. This is one of the worst offenses in the league. And it has been really consistently, even without McCarthy in the lineup. So, it's not all him.
Right. It didn't look great with Carson Wentz.
This team is spiraling, and they've been spiraling. They're 4-6. They've kept things hanging on by a thread, I guess. But we're at the point where they have to rattle off like 5 wins in a row just to kind of get back into being, in even a reasonable position for a wild card spot. Yeah. They have to start going on a win.
I think just to keep the mindset of the football team right. Like it seems like we are teetering on the brink of if not mutiny, like serious self-doubt with this team.
People are coaching for their jobs, I think. And I think people are playing for their jobs. And people have lost their jobs. Peter, 4 different Vikings have been benched this year. Like they are indecisive about their depth chart. They've been indecisive schematically about how they want to approach run defense, how they want to fix their problems. This is not a team with a clear vision right now. They came into this year with what they thought was a clear vision, but a couple of injuries, and I think some of their schematic ideas not working out the way that they thought because the players can't execute what they thought. And I think they've started scrambling and reaching for whatever kind of foothold they can get to try to be normal. And I think what that has turned this into is the 2025 season is over. I really do personally, I feel like the 2025 season, this is not a team that's going to win 6 in a row. Yeah. But so it's kind of turned into the way that you would look at, the Bears were looking at Caleb Williams last year, or the way the Titans are looking at Cam Ward right now. Just show me some progress, take some steps forward. And, the wins, the losses, who cares? Let's just see what the quarterback can become over a couple of weeks of see an issue. Can you fix the issue by the next week? See a new issue. Can you fix the issue by the next week? And sometimes we have gotten some of that. He's gotten better at running the operation. They've gotten better at the line of scrimmage. He's gotten better at doing his reads and the timing. And hopefully you can work on the accuracy next, and hopefully you can see a little bit of that progress. And I've been trying to cover that progress or lack of progress really in depth on my Patreon page and on Locked On Vikings. But this is not like, okay, what's the playoff way to go? Like we are not going into the playoff simulator and seeing which games the Packers can lose so we can leapfrog. Yeah. We're not there.
It's interesting. My co-host on the squad show, Brandon Snide, pointed out that in Jordan Love's first year as a starter, around this time, the Packers were 4-6, and they did reel off 5 wins to ultimately get into the playoffs. A loss to Tommy DeVito in there, notwithstanding. And so, like,
well, we can't all have Toyota-thon magic, which I think starts this week.
That's true.
Right?
So if you made the case, I feel like Jordan Love at that point had shown some promise, but certainly like in the second half of that year, he played like one of the 5 best quarterbacks, one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. just for that second half. And your pal, our pal, Arif Hassan wrote about like, is this going to be real? Like, have we ever seen someone take a half a season and turn it into this other thing? Is there any evidence that JJ McCarthy is capable of doing that for this offense right now?
For 2025, I just think that the list of problems is too long.
Yeah.
I like Jordan Love plays a very high variance version of ball. There's a lot of 500 balls, and sometimes your guy comes down with them. Sometimes our guy comes down with them. Sometimes they're incomplete, and I think that has led to, I mean, you tell me if I'm way off base here, but I think sometimes that leads to those games where you like the one against Cleveland, where you're like, what the heck, Jordan? But it also leads to, beating the Cowboys in their own home in 2023 in the playoffs and kind of emerging on the scene like that, right? So it kind of makes, when you play that high variance ball, well, you can kind of Yahtzee a bunch of games in a row, get hot. That's not what's happening in Minnesota. The offense is straight up bad. It's not high variance and getting unlucky. It straight up stinks. And nobody in Minnesota is going to argue with you about that. The reasons that it stinks, you may get some people, whether you're talking to a coach or a player, would have differing opinions, right? But they're just trying to figure out how to put one foot in front of the other, which I think makes this an interesting matchup because the Packers defense has also had, I would say, considering the hype that unit got, especially after the Parsons trade, hasn't really been able to live up to that all the time. And so I see these two units that kind of thought they were going to be much more than this, that are still trying to find a way to live up to that potential. And I'm really curious to see what you think of now. I mean, we've seen, a few months of Micah Parsons and what the Packers defense was supposed to be. Parsons himself has been very productive, but did it turn you into the juggernaut you thought?
Well, I don't know that I thought they'd be a juggernaut, but I certainly think, to your point, like after we saw them the first 2 weeks, it was like, okay, maybe they are a juggernaut, right? Like, it's like, okay, they weren't even playing their best. And you were getting, these convincing double-digit wins against the Lions and the Commanders, who, they were two of the best teams in the NFC last year. They're one of them, at least, is still probably one of the best teams in the NFC. The consistency of this team overall has not been there. And that's the frustrating part if you're a Packers fan. And I think that's what opens the door for the criticisms of Jordan Love, of Matt LaFleur, of this defense, because it's like, we saw the defense a week ago hold the Eagles to 10 points. And Jalen Hurts said, after having played some really good defenses, having played the Denver Broncos, who for my money are the best defense in the league, if it's not Seattle, right? He said the Packers have the best defense in the NFL. And then they go out and they give up 20 to Jameis Winston and they drop 5 potential interceptions. And it's just sort of like, well, what is the deal here? And that's the part that's frustrating. We see the Packers. There are some drives where they do look unstoppable. Jordan Love, he balled out against the New York Giants. I mean, you watch the tape, the drops for the Packers, the broadcast said 7. I think you could convincingly tell me that there were more out there than that.
Jeez, we're losing our minds right now over a 5 or 6 drop game against Chicago. You just said 7. Just want that in perspective.
Right, that's
crazy.
That's a crazy number. And JT O'Sullivan called it one of the best 13 completion games he'd ever seen, because it's just it's just not that. He was outstanding, but there is this variance in the offense, and it is hard to explain because the drops, if it's not the drops, it's an ill-timed penalty or it's a missed assignment. And it's like, why is this team not able to, they haven't put together one game where you just go, that's the team that we thought we'd see since the first 2 weeks, with the exception of maybe the second half against the Steelers, right? 20 straight completions for Jordan Love. He ripped up that Pittsburgh Steelers defense with Aaron Rodgers on the other sideline in Pittsburgh. That was a pretty cool moment.
Pretty fun,
in prime time. Jordan Love, if you look at Pro Football Focus grades and care about those sorts of things, maybe you do, maybe you don't. 2 of his highest grades of his career have come in the last month. He's playing at a really high level, but I think you're right to say there's a lot of variance there. I think, you can get your dunks off on the 500 ball stuff. I think that stuff is overstated at times.
It's a risky vibe. It's a risky style. And I think if you asked him, he'd be like, yeah, of course he'll take chances,
Look, Packer fans don't want to admit this. They loved Brett Favre more than they ever loved Aaron Rodgers. This is just
whoa. I don't want to get involved in this.
But you don't have to take this.
I don't want to get involved in anything. Everyone come
and be mad at me. But in your heart of hearts, I'm right. And the reason they loved Brett Favre more than Aaron Rodgers is he was willing to throw 5 interceptions trying to win them a football game. He would rather die than lose a game. And Aaron didn't feel that way. Jordan Love feels that way. Jordan Love is going to throw 3 interceptions trying to win you the game, or he's going to throw 4 touchdowns and win you the game. And that is, I think, like, that's every fan just wants you to see, like, he wants every football player, fair or unfair, right? Like we can have a conversation about that part of it too. We don't have time on this show to adjudicate all of that. But like, that's what a fan wants, is for every player to go out and give everything to try and win and try and make every play. You want to see that. And that's the cool part about this team. Let's talk about the matchups here. I think there's some fun and interesting things. Kevin O'Connell is still a hell of a coach. Brian Flores, God dog, he's still a hell of a coach, even though this defense is not what they thought it would be coming into the season. We'll talk about that on a Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings crossover Thursday. Today's episode of Crossover Thursday brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. We make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and this is my favorite thing. My favorite thing is the stacks. It's a new feature. You can pick more on Steph Curry, points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. You love Giannis's matchup. He's hurt right now. You love Luka's matchup. Stack it. Stack it. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings, a crossover Thursday. Mr. Luke Braun here with me on Locked On Packers. I'm Peter Bukowski. Luke, this defense was so tough last year. And we talked in 2023, and you told me you thought that in some ways this Brian Flores defense had been figured out a little bit. And then in 2024, they added Andrew Van Ginkel and they switched out Daniil Hunter for Jonathan Grenard, and it seemed to work. And they got even better. Why the step back this year? What's the deal?
They've been really indecisive. There are a couple of losses that they just didn't really do a good enough job of replacing. In particular, Cam Bynum. They kind of made this big emphasis on, getting pressure up the interior. I think that's really what ended their season last year. One of the biggest culprits is no push of the pocket at all. Goff and then Stafford could just sit back there and deal. And those guys are guys that you need to get pressure up the middle on, because they're not the kind of guys that are going to run away from it. So you have to, and they just couldn't do it. They had 2 run stuffers up front that couldn't rush the passer. So they bring in Hargrave, they bring in Jonathan Allen, and then the run defense falls apart. But they haven't really been able to replace, they trade away Harrison Phillips, and that's been really hurting them. And they have all these run defense issues. Here's what I'll say though. This season did not go belly up because of the defense. Yeah. The defense has been at worst fine, if not still pretty good. But it's they haven't been nearly as aggressive. Part of the concept here was
the defense can be good enough that JJ McCarthy has to just be fine. I think he's been sub fine, but that was right. If you have a top 5 defense and you can run the ball okay, Justin Jefferson and the rest, like you score 17, 20 points a game, you're going to win these games. That's just not been the case.
Right. If the offense lived up to its potential, when you have Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, you've got a running game with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason and a totally retooled O-line and all this stuff, and the offense has to move. That O-line has been banged up as heck. We've never seen the starting 5 together. Probably still won't. Ryan Kelly looks like he's coming back at center, but now Will Fries, DNP with a knee, all of a sudden surprise on the Wednesday injury report. So we got stuff to watch now.
Yeah. And then even if they come back, you got a continuity question, right? They haven't played together, since like August.
Right. And really they haven't ever, because Christian Darrisaw was on big time pitch counts, knee brace, right. And they spent most of camp practicing with just in school, and Ryan Kelly missed a lot of camp too. So they've been shuffling around that O-line, and that's been a problem. They've had total stinkers from receivers, including Jefferson.
They stay injured. That's a weird thing.
People got real mad at me for suggesting that. So be careful, Peter. You don't want people to start clipping you. But like that unit has had like a lot of disappointments, a lot of people not playing the way that you thought they would play. And then add on top of it, huge quarterback issues, right? Carson Wentz is his huge issues that we're all very familiar with. And then JJ McCarthy with lots of issues that we're less familiar with, but boy, are we learning fast. It's a young quarterback. He's drowning. I think the Vikings have asked way too much of him. Here's a fun stat. Number one average depth of target in the league is JJ McCarthy by a lot. There are 4 quarterbacks with an ADOT over 9 yards, and JJ's is 10. It's insane. And
I guess I can see the case to like introduce some variance, just let them throw it down the field. And if you hit a couple, great, like let Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson go make plays. But we saw last week when that can go wrong, because if the pass is like wildly off target, all of a sudden it's an interception instead of a 50-50 ball for JJ.
Well, and he'll drift into trouble and then he gets hit as he throws, and a few interceptions have happened that way. Or you can have what happened against the Ravens. You want to see cope about Justin Jefferson. If you want to believe that Justin Jefferson is watch that Ravens game. He was terrible. He had a bad game for the first time.
And also just like didn't give effort.
Yeah.
The effort on the interception was pathetic.
Right. And he was frustrated, and he had to like answer to the media afterwards about like controlling his emotions and stuff. And like he lost it in that one. And so like you get games like that and you're like, okay, well now what are we supposed to do? So it's been this.
Turn my fantasy team too, Luke. I don't appreciate it.
Can't help you. It's been this wildly inconsistent and really frustrating ride that can't get out of their own way, but they have had their moments, right? They go into Detroit, and I thought the offense had a great game, right? Or these kind of fourth quarter comeback drives in both the Chicago games, and like they've had their moments. Even with Wentz, they
still in that Baltimore game for all the issues they had. They were still in that game late.
Yeah, Baltimore's like got a lot of bozo energy.
Yeah, they really do. I don't know what their deal is. And Lamar's not healthy, right? Like him not being able to run is a huge problem.
Yeah, he didn't run nearly as much as we thought. Like they've still, like, it's not, the Raiders where they just can't put anything together. They've had their moments, which is why, you go into Lambeau, you go play a team you play twice a year. Everybody knows each other really well, and it's always this equal. We talk about this every time, no matter which one of our teams is supposed to win the game. It's always an equalizer when these two teams play.
Yeah.
And that it like the Packers can't overlook the Vikings, even though they are the quality of team that you usually would be able to. But the other part of it is that the Packers have played down to their competition so much.
They sure have.
And that kind of leads to the inconsistency that you've been talking about. But when it comes to a game like the Panthers game or the Browns game, or, the Giants game that you won, but it was you're supposed to beat those guys by more.
Yeah.
What is it about the Packers, or how, or maybe to look forward, how can the Packers prevent that from happening again? They're favored on the road by almost a touchdown. They should kill this team. Yeah. But how can they stop it from becoming yet another disappointment?
Well, I mean, just make the plays. I mean, the great line from Charles Woodson once upon a time was, as a defensive player, if you just catch all the balls they throw at you, you'll be all pro. Like, they had 5 in their hands against Jameis Winston, and they made 1 play. Like, that's just not going to work. I mentioned 7 drops on offense. Like, if they make half of those catches, they win by 20. So it's the small things. They're in positions to make those plays. They're just not making them. But we know that they have the talent of player to make those plays. Xavier McKinney has great ball skills. Keyshawn Nixon has great ball skills. Like, one of them was Javon Bullard had a ball in his hands, and Isaiah McDuffie kind of like stumbles and falls into him. And I don't know, we were joking on our squad show. Does he get a pass breakup for that when it's on your own teammate? Like it's those kinds of things. I feel like, and maybe this is just because I'm too lost in the weeds on some of the number stuff, where like, I feel like this team overall is a very talented basketball team with a good shot profile, and the shots are just not falling. And at some point, the shots are going to start falling. And that's the hope, right? Like, I will never forget the 2019 Milwaukee Bucks. They had a great shot profile, and the Raptors beat them in 6 games. So it's like, okay, sometimes the numbers
you run out of time
in a short run. Yeah, you run out of opportunities to make it right. And in 2024, all the underlying numbers said this is a top 5 team against the Eagles. They lose Elton Jenkins on the first drive. Christian Watson tore his ACL the week before. They lose Jaden Reed in the first half. They lose Romeo Doubs. So now you're throwing to Dontavian Wicks and Malik Heath and players you've never heard of against the freaking Philadelphia Eagles, the best defense in the league in Philly. We're going to lose that game. So, Eric Eager always says luck is a first order problem or solution to whatever you're dealing with. Like, luck is just part of the deal. And, this team, I think they're really, really close. That doesn't mean they're going to find the thing. That doesn't mean they're going to find their equilibrium or their projected equilibrium, right? But they're really close to that moment. And we've seen 2024, this is around the time, all of a sudden they go to Seattle and they beat the Seahawks. They score 30 and they beat them by 3 scores. They shut out the New Orleans Saints. They start to look like the team that we thought they were all season. Injuries, unfortunately, didn't let them get there. 2023, same thing. It was Thanksgiving. That was the turning point in their season. They go into Detroit and they put it on the Detroit Lions. The next week, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs at home. And it's like, okay, like that was the best 2-game stretch, not literally anybody, but like as good a 2-game stretch as anyone had all season was that 2-game stretch. And Jordan Love at the end of that season playing great. They went to Minnesota, albeit against the backup quarterback, but that defense, that was a top 10 defense that year. And Jordan lit them up. So,
the New Year's game,
the Jaden
that was like a breakout too, because everybody was watching that, and everybody was still kind of unfamiliar with how Jordan Love had changed.
Exactly right.
And then 2 weeks after that is the Dallas game,
and that was the coming out party for him. CJ Stroud, remember, he had that same weekend where he was unbelievable against the Browns, and it was sort of like, okay, here's the new faces of the league. Neither of them took the step forward last year that we thought they were capable of. The difference this year is the Packers are getting that from Jordan Love this year. I mean, depending on which EPA per play model you like, he's first or second, right? Like he's been incredibly productive this year. And that's with some of these drops. You look at the Athletic, they track this, they call it the betrayal index. So it's like drops, special teams issues, situational defense. I think it's a Mike Sando creation. And I think Jordan Love is third in betrayal index. So like he's not even getting the like quote unquote luck. He's being betrayed by his own team and is still producing at an elite level. So to me, I've been saying all year, Luke, like they have Matt LaFleur, they have Jordan Love. I think that's enough to beat almost any team. If you get like solid play around him. You're also our guy, Coach Jags, on our squad show, not to bring that shamelessly up again, but he has one of my favorite sayings. You are eligible every Sunday for an ass kicking. So you still have to go play. Bar.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You still have to go play. And so, this is a divisional game. If you can't get up for a game like this, like you don't deserve to be in the conversation.
Yeah. You get the worst team in the division coming to your house. You got to get up for it.
You have to get up for it. We'll talk about what is going to key this game. We'll do that next on a Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings crossover Thursday. Today's crossover Thursday brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Packers are 6.5-point favorites at home. The total 41.5. Packers, they've moved down a little bit on the money line. It was a straight up 3-1. Now it's minus 295. So it's still pretty convincing. The Packers picked to win this game. The NBA also back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're back here on a Locked On Packers, Locked On Vikings crossover Thursday. And Luke, I want to start this conversation here because I meant to bring it up in the last segment. The Packers defense is the number one defense in not allowing plays of over 10 yards. They're the number one defense in not allowing plays of over 20 yards. You mentioned the ADOT stat. Like this is a team that wants to hunt some big plays. That is my key to victory. If the Packers do not allow the Vikings to create explosive plays, I think they will win. And defensively, this is the best defense in the league at not allowing explosive plays. So they are set up in that way to win this game.
It makes it a bit of an inflection point, I think, for the Vikings, because the Vikings cannot help themselves but call another double move on 3rd and 2. Like Kevin O'Connell needs to be stopped, but it's not just O'Connell. He will call that, but he'll have something underneath, an outlet or even a backside concept that's a little more reasonable if the front side double move thing doesn't play. And then McCarthy will just greet it. He has played an incredibly greedy
No, that's ball. 9. That's 9. Not McCarthy.
Yeah, that's 9. Oh my God. Look, man, you know as well as I do. Sometimes the QB's weird. All right. Sometimes the QB's weird.
You are preaching to the choir on that.
Yeah, you guys know what it's like. All right.
Yeah.
But
Call me when he's taking trips to Peru to do ayahuasca.
Not yet. They cannot meet. Those two cannot meet. Because
they were almost in the same quarterback room, Luke. They were making googly eyes at Aaron Rodgers in the offseason.
That was honestly the biggest fear to me, was like, you cannot learn what's on Aaron Rodgers' phone. Nobody share the Signal group chats.
No one should see that.
So this to me is a moment where, like, if not now, that you decide to take what the defense gives you and, try to just get a normal completion percentage. We're having like we're hovering around 50% completion because we're going for the shot all the time.
Yeah.
If ever there is a time to just take the completion, I'm not talking turn into a slant flat screen, Bo Nix offense. I'm talking about just take what is there, take your completion, move on. Don't be greedy. This needs to be the time. And if this is the time, then they can maybe try to move the ball and start to make this a spicy game on the road. But they have to be responsible, and they have to kind of curb their worst instincts, and they haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, JJ has to leave 9 in Minneapolis and just bring JJ McCarthy, because the way that teams have played the Packers, and this is the biggest fear, and the reason that they have quote unquote played down to their opponents is because what teams have realized, and this started really with Cleveland, is if you possess the ball and you make this a 7-possession and 8-possession game, you mentioned the Ravens and their bozo energy. The Packers have some bozo energy too. And part of that is Jordan Love, but part of that is they're a young team. Part of that is Matt LaFleur sometimes can't help himself.
Yeah, drops can turn into picks.
And look, Jordan Love only has 3 interceptions this year. The turnover-worthy play rates reflect that. He's been better than the narrative around him in terms of the turnover-worthy plays. It's just that the turnover-worthy plays are so loud and so dumb and so bad that you're just like, right? How does he like
the one against Carolina is coming to mind?
Yes,
the 4th and 8.
Do you have a friend that is like an intelligent person, but sometimes they do things and you're just sort of like, how do you make it through a day?
I know a lot of people like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's kind of Jordan Love playing quarterback. It's like, you're a really good quarterback. How does this happen? Why, like, how can you possibly make this bad a mistake? Just don't do the dumbest thing you've ever seen once every 2 weeks. And
hope you enjoyed the play, Mrs. Lincoln.
Right. But like, he'll do it once. It's not Jameis Winston where he's like the meme where it's like, I'll effing do it again. Like that. Yeah. Like he's luckily not that.
But if you lose that mentality, then you kind of lose what makes him though. That's the deal.
This is the thing, is you kind of just have to let him ride the lightning, man. Like that was the fun of Brett Favre. And so again,
that's what we did with Sam Darnold last year, and what Seattle's doing with him now too.
100%. And sometimes you get the bad end of the variance, and he throws 4 interceptions on a day where you have 400 yards of offense and can't score because you can't stop turning the ball over. But my point of the playing down of the competition thing is, if this is a 7 or 8 possession game, that's where the Vikings have an opportunity, because what the Giants did was they said, we'll take the 3 yards on first down, and then we'll take the 4 yards on second down, and then we'll convert third down. And we'll do that 3 or 4 times. And now we're in plus territory where we can get a little crazy. We can go for it. I think they went 3 or 4 on fourth down, and the Packers will let you move the ball, but they think that they're going to get a turnover. They're going to get a sack. They'll do something, or they'll get a red zone. And by and large, they've been pretty good doing that. They haven't been able to create the turnovers. They're 9th in EPA per play if you exclude turnovers. They're 15th if you include turnovers. They're 28th in the league creating turnovers. They just don't do it enough. And
stoppable force meets movable object. I think that's
and this is the problem, right? So like if you
Vikings give the ball up like it's
you let the Vikings matriculate the ball, that's the formula. The problem is the Vikings they're also bozos, and they will give up the ball, or they will on 3rd and 8 or 2nd and 8, they'll make a ridiculous throw, and now it's 3rd and 8, and you're in a tough position against Micah Parsons and Jeff Hafley. So that's the thing, is it's like, can either one of these teams just be normal on that side of the ball? And what's fun is that the Packers, when the Packers offense is on the field and the Brian Flores defense is on the field, that's going to be cinema all game. Like, it's going to be a great cat and mouse game. LaFleur versus Flores, Jordan Love against his own worst impulses. That's going to be fun. And I did want to throw this out there at you. Jordan Love this year against cover 2 is completing 91% of his passes according to Pro Football Focus.
Yeah.
So it's just like, as long as you have some answers for 0 and I don't like, can the Vikings play the man coverage they played in Minneapolis last year? Like, I feel like they just don't have the horses to do that this year.
They've been doing more of that than you would think. They've also been making like roster changes. They've been making depth chart changes on their secondary. Theo Jackson is functionally benched right now. He's playing like, single digit snaps a game. And they got Fabian Moreau, who they picked up off the waiver wire on cut down day, who's like now turning into an active starter. Yeah, he's playing decent ball. Like, I don't know. But it's Flores, right? So you have to have an answer to 2 and to 0 and to all that, but you have to have a fast answer to those things.
Yeah.
Because the blitzes are going to come and they're going to, confuse whoever you got going at center. And I know that O-line has been banged up and shuffled.
Sean Ryan, first-time starter. Yep.
Yeah.
So game starting, but he's not the preferred starter. He's a backup.
Yeah. So they're going to mess with that as well. And that might be the thing of it. But I think we have to talk about turnovers on the other side. The Vikings have not taken care of the ball. McCarthy, of course, taking way too, and he's not, he made a risky throw and got punished. He's just like, you shouldn't throw that. And you throw an interception.
Yeah.
It's different than, some of the Sam Darnold picks last year were like, I see what you were going for. Maybe it was a little tight. You underestimated how fast that safety could break. This one is just like, dude, what are you doing? And you just kind of heaving up an idiot 500 ball getting picked. So you have to not do that. And I just don't trust this team to have that kind of ball security. The Vikings on defense have not generated turnovers the way that I think they've gone on these long droughts of just no turnovers. Outside of the Bengals game, I think they have like 2 turnovers. It's really, really bad. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't have it in front of me, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were lower than the Packers defense generating turnovers. They go for the peanut punch all the time. They tackle high. It sounds like Josh Jacobs is going to be very iffy for if he plays this game.
Yep.
He would be a beneficiary of that because the Vikings love to tackle around the shoulder and go for the ball, and then you can just churn your legs and carry him for.
Tucker Kraft would have also been the beneficiary of that, but of course he's out for the season.
Yep, and he's out. So that is like this huge. They have to find a way to generate turnovers, and they have to find a way to take care of the ball on the other side. They've lost the turnover battle in almost all of their games this year.
Yikes.
And look, man, they're on a 4 of 5 losing streak. They are spiraling, and this is one of the most important reasons why. Turnovers and penalties. It's always turnovers and penalties. They can't win the turnover battle. They can't win the game.
The thing about bad teams is they do bad things, and turnovers and penalties, that's as bad as it gets. Like you're just not going to win games if that's part of your identity. So it sounds like we both think this is going to go a certain type of way. Maybe that should make everyone involved a little bit scared. But we will, of course, have more content this week. Locked on Packers, Locked on Vikings. And then after the game, Locked on Packers, Locked on Vikings. We got squad shows. We got all kinds of cool stuff for you on the Locked on Podcast Network. Luke, the #1 sports podcast network.
How about that?
We are here for you. So as always, stay locked on Packers and Locked on Vikings.